So Gottfried, I mean, instant payments has been having a big push in the last few years, and now we're trying to tackle the very important American market. So tell us about what's happening there and what Swift's doing there.
Well, you're picking probably the most complicated payments market in the world, maybe together with Europe. Those are.
And also one of the ones that's been taken the longest to kind of come to terms with instant payments, I think.
Indeed, and one that had historically not a lack of technology with the card networks that have de facto offered instant payments in a different way. We'll see how it evolves. In the US, we're involved by allowing our interfaces to talk to all the different payment systems and really becoming multi-channel there. We're also more globally, selectively participating in allowing the communication with these infrastructures. In Europe with TIPS being built by the ECB. In Australia, we'll go live, I think right after Sibos with the AUNPP initiative platform. So our view is selective participation in the platforms, communicating with the platforms, really enabling our banks to communicate with as many infrastructures as possible. And for me, perhaps the most exciting part of it is what role GPI can play in tying these systems together. If you can move real time within a country, you can then use GPI to move it almost instantaneously, internationally, benefiting from the controls and the liquidity that the banking system offers, and then inject it into a real-time payment in the other country. You can have end-to-end, almost cross-border real-time payments with the benefits. All right,
but that's the sort of ideal world. I mean, how far are we away from getting towards that?
Yeah, I think it's going rapidly now. If major players like in the US, the clearinghouse, the ECB in Europe and EBA in Europe, if they really are moving, then within a few years we might see this dream for selected corridors happening. US-Canada is another one. The Canadians are actively pursuing real-time payment systems as well. Be a logical corridor to tie together.
All right, now in the discussion already you've mentioned about 4 different systems, so the States, Australia, 2 versions in Europe. Yep. I mean, is it a problem having those different ways of doing it in different parts of the world?
It's a given. Let me put it that way. I think the payments will always be somewhat legacy driven. The structures that have been there sort of perpetuate themselves. The US, no matter what, the US is still signature cards, the Europe has gone PIN, and those things persist long after the technologies have moved on. So I think historical differences are given. We can mention checks in the US still. Yes, they're declining, but haven't gone away yet. So I think those differences are a given, and one of the challenges and opportunities for banks and for us is effectively tying that together. Banks have always been pretty good at that. Correspondent banking was effectively tying together all these local systems into a real international system that we're now improving. And I think it's exciting to see if we can now do the same for these real-time infrastructures. Yes.
Okay, now if you move things fast, if something goes wrong, it also goes wrong fast. So, I mean, what about the security issues that are involved with instant payments?
Yeah, I think they will have to evolve as well, and we're seeing that with our own customer security program. We are now drastically beefing up the security of the endpoints, telling our banks you have to comply with these and these controls. You have to attest against these and make that transparent to your counterparties. We're also seeing that many banks are putting controls on their side, screening incoming payments. There's a role for artificial intelligence there. So overall, the whole system, I think, is improving the controls and defenses against this. Yeah, and that will have to be a given as well if we are to move to faster payments. Yes.
Gottfried, thanks very much. We'll come back and talk about security in just a second.